only to have to pull on the air brakes, and we had immediately had to stop in behind. A vehicle had to pull over in the left-hand side of us to stop to keep from hitting us. Another vehicle had to pull over to the right to keep from stopping and allowing the fourth vehicle enough space to stop. So, Mr. Speaker, the bill covers a lot of serious instances that can happen. The speeding in the school zones can be equated to drinking and driving. The speeding in construction zones can be equated to drinking and driving, and can be equated to what the bill talks mainly about in the fact that about the ignition interlock system. All three are related, Mr. Speaker, although on first brush maybe it doesn't look like they are, but all are transportation issues that require due diligence on behalf of the province, due diligence on behalf of the police force, and, Mr. Speaker, more importantly, due diligence on behalf of the drivers. These people have to step up to the plate, take responsibility for their actions. Where it is voluntary right now, those that decide to join this program, hopefully they are practicing what they preach, showing that they are making an honest effort to move forward and protect the public from their wayward ways in the past. And, Mr. Speaker, driving responsibly is what it's all about in all three areas that I mentioned. I hope that the government would consider the possibility that Mothers Against Drunk Driving would prefer to see it made mandatory, because I know we have 3 strikes and you're out, and this could be part of the 3rd strike. Give them the choice on the 3rd strike, either or. And if they don't want to join, then fine. Or maybe that's the way you're doing it now, giving them the choice of making it voluntary. But maybe by the time they hit the 3rd strike, Mr. Speaker, then it becomes mandatory that they have to have this interlock ignition system installed. So, Mr. Speaker, having said that, and having the time getting on, with a few more comments, Mr. Speaker, I will conclude. To bring this in, as I heard the previous speaker say, that they could have done this a few years back, I'm glad to see it coming forward now, because every time legislation is passed, nothing is perfect. It's nice to see it come forward with improvements. According to the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they're saying the improvement is not heavy-handed enough, harsh enough, or maybe not proper enough. Voluntary, it may work, Mr. Speaker, but it's almost like a voluntary speed limit. If the speed limit is voluntary, who is going to follow it? It's hard enough now to be on the highways and do the proper speed and not be run off by vehicles. Either you can't see their headlights in your back bumper, or they'll run you off trying to pass you as the lane comes to an end. Anything just to get ahead. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that this bill, when it clears and goes on to the next reading and the input from the public, that in law amendments, that these people will come forward, especially the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I'm sure they will, and make their case a lot more eloquently than I can for them. And I hope that they have their facts and figures ready and cause this bill to save lives and be brought forward and supported by the police forces, by the members of this House of Assembly, and more importantly, Mr. Speaker, by the members of the general public. And when I say the general public, Mr. Speaker, I'm meaning that all of the residents of Nova Scotia who are drivers. It's time that drivers step up to the plate and be accountable. Mr. Speaker, as a driver myself, I have one of the ribbons tied on the aerial of my vehicle to advertise the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And that in itself is a minor display of support. But in a major way, I think that the drivers, somewhere along the line, we have to put some responsibility on the drivers. Locally in my area, Victoria, the Lakes, 3 of the highway workers actually had their helmets blown off of their heads last year on Highway 125. On Highway 125, here's 3 local workers out there, and they're working in a construction zone with the proper signage, the proper barrels, the proper pylons, and Mr. Speaker, a truck went by with such a speed that the helmets blew off of 3 of those workers. Now, Mr. Speaker, I mean, who in their right mind would like to work in that kind of a workplace? And I'm glad to see that the government has put forward, I always call it the working manual, but there is a paragraph in there for temporary work stoppages and lane closures that once the lane is closed, and I was the one who was pushing the Minister of Transportation for this, but I understand now that once that lane is closed, it is no longer the responsibility of the Department of Transportation. It becomes the responsibility of the Department of Labor because, Mr. Speaker, it becomes a workplace. It is no longer a highway. It becomes a workplace. And becoming a workplace, it falls, as I said, under the Department of Labor, and therefore must be protected and made safe for the driving public, for the workers, and for the repairs of the highway. Mr. Speaker, the opportunity to make political points has long passed.
He'd like you to move adjournment.
And
when you're ready, just say move adjournment.
Order, please. No, keep going. We have till 6.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, then in summation, that I feel myself as a driver,